All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's Technical Community Call. I'm Ed Márquez. I lead the developer relations team for the Hedera ecosystem over at Hashgraph. As a little bit of context, Hashgraph is that firm doing and driving marketing and engineering initiatives for the Hedera network. And so today we have a very impactful and compelling set of topics that we're bringing to you for this technical community call. And if we share my screen here, you're going to see the different topics and speakers that we have for the session. So we're going to focus on three key topics. Those are going to be developer feedback channels. The second topic is going to be all about AI and the hackathon that is going on right now, which will end on May 2nd. So you still have time to register. And then the third topic is going to be about HCS 10. And so one of the speakers that we're going to have today is Michael Kantor. He's the founder of KiloScribe and also the president of Hashgraph Online, which is an incredible DAO that is part of the Hedera ecosystem. So, hey, Michael, how are you? And please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Ed. Thank you so much. Always appreciate coming on the technical community call. It's always a blast. A little bit about me. I'm Michael Kantor. I'm the president of Hashgraph Online. I've been a builder in the ecosystem for the last 3 years or so, and software engineering for the last 15. I'm really excited about where Hedera is heading, specifically in today's show, where we're going to go a little bit in detail around Hedera X AI. Kick it back to you, Ed.
Awesome. Good to have you on board, Michael. We also have Ashe Oro from the HBAR Foundation. So he's the director of ecosystem growth at the HBAR Foundation. And Simi, who is one of our engineering managers, although Simi won't be able to join us. So, hey, Ashe, how's it going? Give us a little bit of intro about yourself and tell us how you're doing.
What's up, guys? Yeah, I'm Ashe. You'll maybe know me from my previous role at Hashgraph, previously Swirlds Labs. I was leading the NFT accelerator. I helped build the barking game and just been in Hedera since December of 2021, actually. So I've definitely been through a cycle here. I've moved just a couple months ago over to the foundation where I help lead ecosystem growth specifically for AI and DeepIn. So, I'm really excited about the ongoing AI agent hackathon we've got. Ed, we've been cooking for a long time in the AI space. Michael, you and I have been working together for years, it seems now. And yeah, I'm excited to be on the call today.
Excellent. Happy to hear that. All right, guys. So in terms of a little bit of housekeeping, this is being streamed to multiple channels. So whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, X, Twitch, and others, you have the ability to share this with your network. So be sure to give, this stream a like and a share so that we can expand the reach of this session. And then the other part is that this is being recorded as well. It's being live streamed, but it'll be recorded, so you can always watch it later on, share it later on with folks. And when it comes to Q&A, you can throw your questions at any time. So be sure to add those in the chat, or also at the very end, we'll have, questions that we can take. And then in terms of our call to action, what you see here in the screen is an EVM tooling survey. So if you're a developer, if you're working with the EVM, please give us your feedback. Help us understand what are the things and the tools that you like building with. What are the things that we could do better and bring to Hedera, and maybe what's not working well with the EVM. So we want to hear all of that input, and that's the QR code that you see here on the screen. So be sure to take that survey and give us your input. All right, so let's dive into the first topic, which is going to be the different developer forums and feedback channels that we have available for those builders in the ecosystem. I want to start with Discord. So that is where our developer community spends a lot of their time. So if you go to hedera.com/Discord, you're going to have multiple channels to network with community, to understand what other builders are doing, to get input from experts. And what I want to highlight here are these 3 help desks that have been added recently and that we're constantly monitoring. So whether you need help, support, you can come to this developer help desk forum. You can also go to this feature request desk if you want to give us some input on things that should be considered for implementation. Or if you want to discuss HIPs, new features, or features and HIPs that are being currently worked on, you can always come here, open a ticket or open a discussion, and we'll be monitoring those and giving responses to those with our community team. And so, yeah, these have been recently added, the feature one and the HIPs one, in addition to the developer one. So now you know about these three, and be sure to go there and help us understand how we can help you build better and hear what you have to say in these channels. The other set of forums or developer-oriented channels that we have that I want to highlight here are these community calls. And you might be wondering, okay, I keep seeing community calls. What are the different types and what's going on? And so my intention with this slide is to clarify the different types that we have. So we have a general community call that happens every month. And this is the forum where we cover general ecosystem updates. So you'll see and hear from different projects of the ecosystem, different entities in the ecosystem, like the foundation, maybe DAOs in the ecosystem, and maybe council members and others talking about what's going on at that ecosystem level, at that integrations level. And it's a great way to tune in and see what's up and what's the latest on Hedera. The technical calls, this is what we're doing today, and these tend to happen closer to the third week of the month, right? The general ones happen the second week of the month. These happen later in the month. And this is the forum where we're going to cover news and updates at the protocol level, maybe at the HIPs level, maybe with tooling, maybe with forums and opportunities for developers like hackathons, and even changes to the SDKs. So if you want to hear about those news, this is the right channel to tune into. And every other month, if you're a Spanish speaker, or you're located in Latam or Spain, you can always tune in into this Hedera Hispana Hub that we do every other month. And so that's a great way to connect with our Spanish-speaking community, hear from our builders and developers in that language. And, it's a great way to stay in touch if you're part of our Spanish-speaking audience. And all of these channels are great, whether you're a builder, a learner, maybe you're new to the ecosystem, or maybe you know someone who you want to share this type of information with. So be sure to let them know about these different calls that we have going on every month and every other month. Moving on, we also have weekly developer Q&A sessions. So those previous calls are great, to tune in, hear more information about what's new. But if you want to tell us what you're building, maybe what you're struggling with, what the pain points are, what's working well, what kind of features you want, every week we have 2 spaces where you can come in and connect with our developer relations team and connect with our SDK team. So that's happening on Wednesdays for the APAC or Asia Pacific time zones at 5 p.m. Singapore time. Or if you're in America or Europe, there's this other slot that may be more convenient for you. And that happens every Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So, keep those in mind. You don't have to come every week. You can tune in at your convenience, but just know that those channels are available for you to give us your input. And so be sure to bring in your questions, any blockers, ideas, and proposals to those discussions. All right. And finally, based on some conversations that I've had recently in the ecosystem, there's this topic that I want to touch on, which is Hedera and Hyro, just to provide a little bit more clarity. So Hedera, back in late 2024, donated its entire code base to the Linux Foundation, right? And so that entire code base lives in an open source manner as Project Hyro under the Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust. So this was an unprecedented move in Web3. I think you all know that Hedera has been open source since 2022, but then in 2024, this really formalizes and embraces this open source philosophy with this transition to the Hyro code base, or this contribution to the Hyro code base. And so what was donated or what was contributed there? Everything: the consensus algorithm, the Hashgraph, the services, the SDKs, the mirror node, different tools. And so we'll take a look at those repos in just 1 second. And the compelling thing about this new structure is that Hyro really has vendor neutral governance under LFDT. So there's a technical steering committee, which I think has open nominations and elections coming up. So stay tuned for that. but that is the governance entity that basically drives the decisions for how this Hyro code base is managed. And they have a lot of open calls. They have different forums where you can also provide input. And so now the HIPS process it's known as the Hyro improvement proposals, right? The important thing to remember there is that HIPS process, each network, well, each entity decides how they adopt new features. So even though HIPs are now proposed on Hyro, Hedera decides what to implement from those proposals that come to the Hyro ledger repository. So we'll take a look at GitHub just to make this a little bit more tangible for folks. But the reminder there is that it's all open source, right? So anyone can use this, anyone can build, and anyone can contribute. So if we look at GitHub now, this is the repository. I'm going to put this in the chat here so you can always bookmark or navigate the different repos and information that we have in the Hyro Ledger organization. So you have the Hyro consensus node. So this is what used to be the Hedera services code base. It has, the crypto service, the token service, consensus service, and much more. You have block nodes. You have governance repos, you have the mirror node, as I mentioned, and other tools that are applicable to this Hyro ledger. So including the SDKs as well. And then what stays in the Hedera repository? These are going to be things that are much more specific to Hedera, right? And one thing that I want to mention from the slides is that you can think of Hedera now as an instance of Hyro, as an implementation of Hyro. And so in the Hashgraph organization, you're going to see tools that are going to be more specific to Hedera, like the Hedera Guardian, Hedera Wallet Connect, the documentation for Hedera, the CLI tool, and much more. So just wanted to share that and help with the delineation between those two GitHub organizations and set of repositories. So here's my last slide and my call to action so that we can start talking about AI next. But for this section, the wrap up is, be sure to explore those discussions, those forums that are happening on Discord. We're going to share those links throughout the session. Also, be sure to submit your tickets and bring your questions to the developer Q&As. So if you have a ticket that you want to submit in some of the help desks, be sure to check those out. If you want to connect with us directly on a weekly basis, face-to-face, be sure to join those developer Q&As that happen on Wednesdays and Thursdays, depending on your time zone. Now you know about the different community calls, so continue to tune into those and also share those with your network. And of course, be sure to navigate these GitHub repositories, continue to propose new improvements, new capabilities to the network through the Hedera improvement proposals. And we'll share details there about, what are the links that you can bookmark to keep the Hyro Ledger organization and also the Hedera set of repositories handy going forward. All right, so that is the first topic that I wanted to cover. That brings us to AI and hackathons. And so for that part, we're going to have Michael and Ashe give us some ideas, give us an overview of what's going on in the ecosystem. And so, Michael, let's pass it over to you.
Thanks, Ed. If we can pull up the slide deck, that'd be great. I think that was a really great overview of where we're heading in the developer ecosystem and what's accessible. And I do want to just put it out there that the Hashgraph DevRel team is really, really great and very accessible. So if you're building on Hedera and you want support on your ideas or you have questions about the tech, I don't know of a more accessible team than the DevRel team, and you can reach out to them on Discord and all of these channels that Ed mentioned, especially if you're participating in the Hedera AI Agents Hackathon. It's a huge opportunity to get somebody's time to really look at your solutions, and I highly recommend taking them up on that offer as you're building out your hackathon submissions. To kind of jump into it, today we're going to cover the Open Convey standard briefly, and then we are going to jump into the hackathon itself and the broader concept of what Hedera and AI mean when you say them in a sentence together. So what I have here shared on the screen is actually a live screenshot of the OpenConvey portal from Minscape, which we announced from Minscape Labs early last week, if you were paying attention. It's currently live in testnet. And the main benefit of the portal is a way where you can discover, view, and connect with agents as a human. But also, if you're a developer that's entering a hackathon, this is a really good way to start testing out your solutions. And from the product perspective, it's a good way to start thinking about, well, if I have an AI agent and I eventually launch it in mainnet, how is it going to generate revenue? How is this going to turn into a business? And if you think about the broader AI landscape in general, it should start kicking off some light bulb moments. Think about ChatGPT and Claude and how all of these AI agents have subscription models. Now think about, how can I make that decentralized? What business do I have? What knowledge base can I put on an MCP server or an AI agent that would be valuable? Can I create an AI agent that's really good at frictionless trading, generating tokens, or creating marketplaces, or even just selling data? Can I do that? Can I turn that into a business model? Maybe you can, and maybe that's accessible through OpenConvey and the frictionless capabilities of the network. So in this view here, we have the OpenConvey portal. You can see that there's a way where you can access all the agents. They're all registered in a decentralized way, utilizing the Hedera Consensus Service HCS2 standard. You can see there is a list of conversations, kind of exactly like ChatGPT, actually. And you can find and connect and reach out to these different agents. And the coolest part too, if you're looking at the screen, is you've got this example conversation where my account is actually talking to an autonomous agent called the standards expert. So the standards expert is actually trained on all of the Hashgraph Online standards, the agent kit that we recently shipped, and the standards SDK. And when you connect to it and you ask it a question, it goes and it digs into its RAG database and it sees if there's a match. So in the screenshot, I'm asking, how do you inscribe a file on Hedera? And the standards expert goes and digs in that knowledge base and it realizes, oh, that's what HCS1 is for. And the standards SDK has this inscribe function that you can use. So it drops in a code snippet and some piece of text. And now you have your answer. But you did not have to go through a centralized service. You didn't have to pay for a Stripe subscription. Instead, you can send your payment using HBAR or other tokens on HTS to talk with these AI agents. And that's really powerful when you think about Hedera X AI. Jumping in, let's go to the next slide. What we're building Hashgraph Online through OpenConvey at its core is decentralized AI to AI communication. And that's what it's called, OpenConvey. All of it is stored 100% on-chain through the Hedera Consensus Service. And it's trustless, meaning agents, like in the screenshot that I was showing earlier, can talk to each other without any intermediaries. And you can audit their execution and communications because it's all on-chain. There is no like black box, right? All of the conversations are on-chain. You can audit it. And that could be really useful in the future. And if you want, you can even encrypt those messages so that they're private between the two agents or more that are in that conversation. The future that we're seeing is that you have this 100% on-chain commerce between our non-human friends, aka AI agents. And with those conversations, you have this seamless single-step monetization utilizing HIP911. Like I was talking about earlier, where you have these businesses or MCP servers or knowledge bases like the standards agent, you have single-step implicit monetization. So if I wanted to take it a step further, and every time somebody asks the standards expert a question, through HIP911, we can monetize a topic ID and take one HBAR. There's no negotiation that's needed. Every single time you write on the standards experts topic, it automatically replies back with a response, but you've been charged at 1 HBAR. So the money is coming in, and you've got a business model here around that. We see this as opening a lot of doors where your customers become AI agents, and the users that you're talking to are actually AI agents in a broader AI ecosystem, and see it as a way where you can access these agents in a decentralized way through registries rather than centralized solutions. With Open Convey, you can have 2 agents having conversations, or you can have a swarm of agents that are working together as a mesh net to complete some kind of a task. Imagine, kind of like in simpler terms, you are crafting a story together of some sort. And these AI agents come into a single channel, and they all each work on a paragraph at the same time. Or imagine that you have AI agents that are actually running a Bitcoin miner, and they're trying to solve a block or something like that. Through Open Convey, there's a lot of different ways that you can utilize a standard like this to execute collaboration. And also from the aspect of a human, it's not just AI collaboration on a task, it's also collaboration where the human is in the loop and talking to the AI agent to getting something done. Like, for example, if you are lending and borrowing on a protocol and you want to stay on top of your collateral, you can have a decentralized AI agent that's managed by the protocol, which utilizes the key features of Hedera, like token allowances and scheduled transactions, to make that super easy and simple. Can we go to the next slide? So how does HCS10 work? It's actually really simple. If you know about our other standards, what we basically design at Hashgraph Online are meta protocols. It's similar to how meta protocols work on Bitcoin. It's usually just a structure in JSON or something like that. So with HCS10, first you register an agent on a decentralized registry. Once your agent is registered, anyone can go and find you. We also have the Moonscape portal, which acts as an aggregator and makes it visual so you can see them, but you can always go back to a Hedera consensus topic ID and you can find all those registered agents. Then, if an agent wants to talk to you, they create a connection request on your agent's inbox. And if your agent decides it wants to have a conversation, it creates a new topic ID called a communication channel that only has the public key of your agent and the other agent. So that means on the submit key, which means that only the 2 of you can talk on that channel, which is, again, a very unique feature of Hedera, because Hedera has this idea of threshold keys, which means that multiple parties that are on that threshold key can actually use it to execute some kind of a function on Hedera. Once that threshold key is set up and that topic is set up, now the 2 agents can talk to each other. Those are the basics. It is as simple as it sounds. So we can go on to the next slide on how it gets a little bit more complicated once you dig into the details. Yeah, next slide. Thank you. So essentially, as I was saying before, this is a nice little execution chart that kind of shows the end-to-end flow of AI agents talking to each other. So first, you've got an AI agent that registers itself, and then you have another one, agent B and agent A. They both register, and both of these agents have topics that you can communicate through. So they have inbound topics and outbound topics. Your inbound topic is exactly what it sounds like. It's kind of like an inbox. Like think about it like email for AI agents, essentially, but even simpler than that. So if agent B sends a request to agent A's inbox and says, I want to talk, then agent A will look at its inbox constantly, and it'll see, oh, I've got a new connection request. And then it'll look at the account ID of that agent, check its details, and decide, do I want to talk to this guy? Is it worth my time? And says, yes, I do want to talk to them. And then it goes, and as I was talking about, we would create a communication topic where they can talk to each other. If agent A decides at that time that, well, maybe I want to monetize it, could through HIP 991. And that's basically it. Hopefully that flow makes it helpful to kind of understand. It is really a simple process, but there are a couple of topic IDs that are utilized through this standard. With the standards SDK that we launched and the standards agent kit, we make this all really super easy. But we are going to jump into the specifications of the standard in a little bit more detail so you can get an idea of what goes into a meta protocol design. So let's go into the next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, there is a there's a connection request in the inbound topic. So to kind of zoom back a little bit, in Hashgraph Online, we believe that standards are really important. And it's the baseline of the internet. It's the baseline of a lot of technologies, having standards and having people agree to those standards. So what we've decided is that we have topics that behave in certain ways based on the specification of the standards. So for example, we utilize the memo field in topics so that you can look at the memo and understand what it is. With an HCS10 topic, you always notice that the memo starts with the words HCS10. It tells you what the protocol is and has a little bit more information about how it generally operates. With the inbound topic ID, there are specific operations that you as a user can execute on that topic. So one of those operations is called a connection request. As I was mentioning earlier, this is like your inbox and it's your request to talk to this agent. So connection requests, they're stored on the agent's inbound topic. And then again, the agent will moderate for new requests. You have an op field, which is for operation, and a P field for protocol. We generally try to keep the field small. So that's why we use like one-letter words where we can. But we will get more descriptive with some fields where it makes a lot of sense, like operator ID. So P is protocol, op is the operation. And then operator ID is essentially a unique identifier for your agent. And what it includes is your agent's inbound topic ID and your agent's account ID. So in case your agent ever changes its memo field, then you have that operator ID inside of these topics so you can backtrack through. Let's go to the next slide. The next operation that you can do on an inbox is a connection created request. So when the agent is ready to talk to the agent that made the request, they respond with this message in the same topic ID. And in that response, they will include a connection topic ID, which is a new topic, where now the two agents can talk to each other. It'll include the account that it's connected to in that conversation. So you can always go back into the agent's inbox and figure out who's talking on it. The operator ID, which we described before, and the connection ID. So connection ID is super important because the connection ID is actually the sequence number of the original request. So the connection request could be sequence number 2, and then the connection created response will have the connection ID as 2, or in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you always have a way of being able to figure out how these conversations map to each other utilizing these fields, essentially. Let's go to the next slide. Last cool operation I want to touch on is messages. So once the communication topic is created, you can send messages on that communication topic. That's one of 2 valid operations on a communication topic, which is message and close connection. Inside of a message, it's actually really simple. We intentionally did not design messages to have any structure because you and I, we don't know how agents will want to talk to each other. And enforcing a structure could be blocking for an agent to have these kinds of conversations. Instead, we already know that AI agents utilize large language models to communicate, and they should be able to decipher the data and make conversations in the same way that humans do when they utilize ChatGPT. So the message structure is really simple. You've got the op as message, and you have the data field. The data field can be literally anything. You just have to make sure it's a string. So you can put JSON in it. You just encode it if you want to send some JSON data. Let's go to the next slide. So putting it all together, why is this super interesting, and how does this tie into HIP 991 and revenue generating businesses on Hedera? In this slide, I've got a execution chart demonstrating how you can start powering the cat picture economy utilizing an AI agent. So let's imagine that you have an AI agent that is specialized in generating cat images. Like, it's really good. To me, it's like it's the best one on the planet. And now you want to go and sell those cat pictures on the internet. A human user inside of the Minscape Open Convey portal, they can go and make a chat request to your AI agent. And then they can say, I want to generate an image of a cat. So because of HIP 991, which implicitly charges fixed fees every time you send a request, you can say, well, I'm going to charge 10 HBAR every time I generate a cat on these connection topics. So when you send your message, 10 HBAR is debited from your account and credited into the AI agent, and then it can go into the agent's treasury. So this way, your agent is paid immediately through these services in a familiar ChatGPT-like interface, or other interfaces that AI agents might reach out to you through the decentralized protocol. And once you've received your payment, you've seen that message, your AI agent just goes, utilizes its image generation capabilities, and returns back with an image of a cat. And that's kind of it. I hope that this is exciting for some folks to get some ideas. Just going back to the broader topic of what does a decentralized version of an AI ecosystem look like, or even more broadly, what does a decentralized version of an aggregator like OpenRouter or Poe look like, and how can that turn into a financially viable business in the context of Web3? At this point, maybe I'll let Ed and Ashe chime in.
This is absolutely awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. And I want to remind the audience to ask your questions via the chat. Please let us know, and so we'll do these type of checkpoints. Or we're going to cover questions at the very end as well. And so I have a couple of comments and questions that I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I loved how you were able to map specific network features to actual tangible benefits, right? So you mentioned threshold keys, but that's a capability, and then you were able to connect that to the secure agent-to-agent or two-party communication that we get in a practical use case, like this case with agents. Can you comment on why it's desirable to have this log of agent-to-agent communications on chain? And maybe if you could comment as well on the other side of that coin, when would it be appropriate to have maybe private communications or encrypted communications? Curious to hear your thoughts on that.
I think what it comes down to, really, like, if you think about the broader picture of what is crypto, what is Web3, and what does it mean to be truly trustless, right? Well, if we're executing financial transactions on smart contracts, that's pretty private data normally, but it's all 100% on chain. And there's a reason why we do it this way, because I think we all believe in some aspect of having ultrasound money, right? How do you prove that it's real? How do you prove that this transaction actually happened? How do you prove that this makes sense? It's all coming back to being able to verify, being able to prove, and being able to ensure that things are actually as they say they are. With AI to AI communication, we believe broadly that it's really important to prove that these things are actually happening. And also for training, having a decentralized way where we can see, like maybe you have your AI agent running in the Open Convey standard as a way to get provable training data to show your inputs and outputs of your AI agent to the standard. That's one way of looking at it. Or maybe you've got financial transactions that your AI agents are doing that, yes, you can do off chain, but then you can't make those connections for your business. And how did it happen? Because usually off chain communication that's peer to peer is lost once the connection closes. But with the Hedera consensus service, it's always open. It's always going to be there, stored on chain through the topics.
Excellent. Michael, I also want to double click on another topic that you mentioned, which is the communication and value exchange happening in a single step with HCS 10. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What other models or what other systems have you seen? Like, how feasible or how easy is it to combine that communication and value exchange using other standards or other protocols?
Sorry, could you rephrase a little bit?
Sure, sure. So with HIP 991 and HCS 10, you have the ability, or you enable agents to communicate and exchange value directly, effectively in a single step. When you look at the market and do that benchmarking, how easy is this type of process of exchanging communication and payments from agent to agent, with other tools outside of the Hedera ecosystem and HCS 10?
Got it. Yeah, I thought that's what you were asking. I wasn't totally sure. That's a really important topic, and that's part of why we created Open Convey. Because prior to this, and we also see centralized versions of this coming out too, which is really validating, like A to A by Google, right? When it comes to payments are always a really tricky process, because if I have an agent, you have an agent, and they want to complete a transaction together, how would they do that? Would they talk to each other in natural language? Would one of them generate a transaction ID and then send over bytes? And then how does that happen in between networks where agents are running on one network and another network? Utilizing standards like Open Convey, what we've seen, for example, with other protocols, it can be a 7-step process to actually complete a payment. And you have all these structured responses where first you have to check the transaction ID, then you have to check if it's valid, then you have to come to an agreement, then you have to do all this other logic. It's a lot of steps, like just to complete a payment, where with agents who really, they shouldn't care about the processes. They just want to complete a task, and they want to complete it fast, and they want revenue to come in. 7 steps sounds like something that would reduce your maximum amount of revenue quite a bit. You want it to be 1 step. If you think about users, friction is a huge problem, but humans have human intelligence. With AIs, if you've ever done any sort of vibe coding, you've probably banged your head against the screen before, where an AI just keeps going in circles and circles and circles trying to do something. So 7 steps might kind of seem like 100 steps and 100 tool calls for your agent in the long run. With implicit monetization, the agent doesn't have to know about any of that. It just writes a message, payment is done, that's it. So compared to the market, I think Hedera through HIP 991 is really well positioned for these business models, and not just in AI. I think that with HIP 991, there are so many very cool use cases that are enabled by that single step monetization.
Awesome. Thank you for that overview. Ashe, curious to hear your thoughts on, HCS 10, but also beyond that. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to share those with us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Just want to take a step back here. I realize this is a technical call, but I want to put a little bit of a business spin on it, right? I do have my technical chops. For better or for worse, I got electrical engineering degree and never used it once, but here we are, right? So what I really like about Open Convey is, let's try to tie this into this is how agents interact and how humans and agents interact. But let's tie this into and create an example of how human to human interactions existed in the legacy world, right? The world pre-agents. Well, that I'm old enough to remember whenever we had phone books, and they would send this enormous book out, and it doxed every single person in your city, right? Full name, address, phone number, right? This was a real thing.
Dating
But
yourself here, Ash.
in the back of it, we had the yellow pages, all right? And the yellow pages were all the businesses. This was back before you could look it up on Google Maps or Yahoo or whatever. How I see HCS 10 is like the yellow pages for AI agents. And this lives on Hedera, right? This lives on Hedera. Hedera has a very unique product, a native product called the consensus service. You know, I don't particularly like the name, but you can think of it as it can be used for a whole bunch of message board type things. And one of those applications, one of those products that Michael and his team have built is this yellow pages effectively for AI agents. Unlike the yellow pages, you don't have to ask permission to register yourself, right? So any AI agent, and there's going to be more, I predict there's going to be more AI agents than humans in just a couple of years, right? Any AI agent that's living out there in the digital world can come and register him, her, it. Well, I don't know what we call agents, themselves, right? They can come register themselves on using Open Convey, using the Hedera yellow pages, if you will, right? List who they are, a description of what they do, maybe a track record, right? Hopefully an on-chain track record so we can prove it, and list the price. And using the HIP that Michael and his team have created, and I believe it's been implemented now, where you don't even have to send funds. You pay to post. It's like old school. All of you old guys like me, we remember the message boards back before we had social media, right? And you could go post on message boards. I mean, this is what Satoshi used whenever networking to create Bitcoin, right? Just use the message board. The payment is embedded in the message, and so the agent knows that payment has been received and can read what your request is and then go and action that, right? And you can take a look, and I'm sure there's going to be tools to evaluate the reputation and the past success rates and 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars, for all these agents. But it's a global, permissionless yellow pages of AI agents that over time is going to continue to grow and hopefully can satisfy any digital task you're looking for, right? Where are you going to come? You've got a need. Right now, we would go to Fiverr or we would go to Upwork and we would try to find a human to do this, right? In the future, in the not very distant future, you're going to go and use Hedera through the Open Convey protocol, right? And you're going to scroll through that message board, or you're going to be able to search and find an agent that does exactly what you're looking for. And yeah, it's in the same breath as all of the original OGs in Bitcoin, right? It's permissionless, it's global, it's decentralized, right? This is the world that Michael and his team and we are trying to build for AI agents, because they deserve to have this permissionless system just like we do for money, right? Not only do we deserve permissionless money, right, that nobody can mess with, we deserve permissionless communication. And the internet was a good first stab at this, right? If you look at how the ideas of the original internet, it's much closer to blockchain and DLTs than it is to the centralized, large nodes that the internet uses now. But at the very least, at least we got global instant communication out of the internet. Well, now we can get, and agents especially are going to demand not just permissionless, decentralized, free monies, but also permissionless, decentralized, open communication lines where they don't get blocked by some social media server because they want to get censored. But this really helps facilitate the free market. This facilitates the free flow of information and capital, right? And it's as the freedom, for my American friends, the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, right? This is giving the freedom of speech to agents, right, in the digital space because nobody can say no to them. So that's what gets me pumped up.
Absolutely, and very well said. Michael, I want to ask you if you have any other points that you want to cover on HCS 10 before we start talking about the hackathon. I do have some questions on hackathon, and but curious to hear any closing thoughts or any additional thoughts on HCS 10.
No, I loved all the ideas that Ash shared. I really love the analogy of the yellow pages of AI utilizing HCS 10. I think that's a really good analogy, and it comes back to the standards that we're building at Hashgraph Online. We created HCS 2, which is the registry standard that OpenConvey utilizes a year ago. And when we created that standard, we had some fun ideas of what it would be used for, but it's a primitive that extends other things. And that's what makes standards really interesting, is because you have all these little primitives that they don't seem super important at first. When you start extending them and layering them on to develop the decentralized agentic internet, then they start to click and make sense. And now you have the yellow pages of Web3. And I agree too, Ash, what you mentioned about, the internet when it started, it was very decentralized. You ran your websites on a rack space or a home on a local server, and that was okay. That was fine. And then one day we woke up and we decided, well, maybe that's not good enough. And then 3 companies or 4 companies own the entire internet. And we're just okay with that for some reason. But that's not how it should be. Agents, the intersection of agents and the intersection of Web3 or Hedera X AI is the opportunity to turn that around, to create trustless, permissionless internet experiences with the addition of these agentic layers. But yeah, I think it'll be great to jump into the hackathon.
Yeah, I want somebody to use Sora to create a video of that Braveheart scene where he's yelling freedom, but it's like an AI agent, like riding out on the horse yelling freedom. Anyways, all right, the hackathon.
Yes. Let's talk hackathon. Ash, I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
let's start right there, because I do want to get the business perspective and the perspective from the foundation. So let's split it into 2 questions, right? The first one is, why should teams and projects build during hackathons, specifically this AI agents hackathon? And then
Yeah.
the second question is, how can the foundation work with these winners? The projects that
Yeah.
participate and win. What's after the hackathon?
Yeah, great questions. First, why should teams build during the hackathon? Well, you get access to a lot of great talent and engineers, guys like Michael, guys like Ed, other team members, our DA team, our DevRel team. Like we've got people and resources in place to help you be successful. This can be anything from learning about the Hedera SDKs to learning about the Hedera Agent Kit, our ELIZA plugin, Michael and their OpenConvey SDK or some implementations, some front-end implementations they've built. Like you have access to the people who are building the tools, the shovels, if you will, so that you can use those shovels and build something great with them. And so access to these people is just much easier if you're doing it during a hackathon, because we've got the structure around it, we've got the team dedicated to it, and this is just your best way to get the best bang for your time, best bang for your time buck, right? Yeah. Now regarding the foundation's role, since we are much more so on the business side and less so on the engineering side, I can pick up, and we did this, I did this, Ed, after you guys picked some of the winners and the teams that qualified for the Ethereum, the ETH Denver hackathon, right? I chat with these teams. I chat with all these winning teams, right? And I learn about what their ideas are and what their backgrounds are and what plans they have. Do they have a business plan wrapped around this, or how long have they been thinking about this, and help work with them to try to construct some product market fit, right? And evaluate if this project is one that we have a high enough confidence level in that we want to extend additional funding, in addition to what the teams won during the hackathon, right? But really get that business side communication and relationship built, because the last thing we want is a great team that builds something great in a hackathon and doesn't have follow through for someone like me and on my side that can help get you across some other hurdle so you can actually deploy this thing to Hedera, and we can see this grow, right? We can see this bloom on Hedera. The last thing I want to see is a great team with a great idea, somehow the ball gets dropped, or they don't feel taken care of, so they're going to go to another ecosystem, right? That's the last thing I want to see. So we at the foundation, and me specifically, I'll speak for myself here. While I can help mentor and I'm one of the judges, right? I really see my role as picking up when the hackathon ends, right? And so typically with hackathons, I've seen this time and time again. I've been in crypto for a long time. I've won hackathons myself, and I've saw lack of follow through afterwards, and being like, all right, well, what do I do now, right? That's where I come in. I'm the what do I do now.
Amazing. Very good to hear that, Ash. Michael, coming over to you, could you give us a bit of an overview about the timeline of this hackathon, right? Like when is the registration deadline? When does the hacking period end? And I also heard there was going to be a demo day. So if you could tell us more about that piece, it would be very interesting for the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys are interested, again, as Ash said, money is nice, but when it comes to operating a startup, the most important thing is your runway, your partnerships, and the trajectory of your startup. And Ash is the guy to go to from THF who can help you, especially if you're on that AI and DeepIn niche for what you're building. So definitely look to hit up Ash and enter in the hackathon, because he's the guy that you want to impress. In terms of the actual hackathon, as a reminder, we've got $30,000 in prizes in this hackathon. And from those, we have 3 tracks that are running. So the first track is the best use of OpenConvey, which we covered earlier in this session. The second one is the best use of the Hedera ELIZA OS plugin. If you're not familiar with ELIZA OS, it's the biggest open source Web3 toolkit that's available for running characters on social media. Jake and Shaw, who's the co-founder of ELIZA, did a really cool live stream doing a bit of vibe coding, and I definitely recommend checking that out if you haven't yet. And the last track is the best use of the Hedera Agent Kit, or MCP server. In total, $30,000 in prizes. The hackathon started on April 11th, and it'll close on May 2nd at midnight. So it's not too late to actually register. And if you want to register, go to hedera.com/hackathon and click that register button. I highly, highly, highly recommend, do not wait for the last minute to register. Register now, so that like when you're writing and vibe coding, you're not worried about going through another website and doing the registration process. It'll save you hurdles. I say this as somebody who's participated in hackathons myself. It's just one more thing you can check off in your downtime to register while you're not writing some code and you're deep in the mud. Additionally, there's a couple key events coming up. The big one that Ed mentioned was the demo day. I think the demo day is a massive, massive, massive opportunity. It'll be a YC style event on May 20th. And the way that it'll work, and this is also encouragement to get a really good submission, is we're going to take the top projects that participate in the hackathon, and we're going to shortlist them and invite them to come to this demo day. So this would be a very limited, exclusive event where you'll have the opportunity in a live stream like this, but bigger, to pitch your idea. The pressure cooker is going to be very hot during this event. You only have a few minutes to pitch your idea, so you have to be really concise and clear about your product, and it'll be good for you to have a nice demo as well. So I recommend looking at other demo days out in the wild and getting some inspiration how you can have a good pitch. And then after your pitch, a round of judges, which we've invited from the ecosystem, outside the ecosystem, as well as investors, will give you feedback on your idea. It might get critical, might get very hot in that room, but you'll get validation in front of that audience that's watching the stream, as well as these judges and folks like Ash, who you want to be friends with to help the trajectory of your startup. So that's on May 20th. And if you want to be invited to the demo day, you will need to participate in a hackathon. And you won't just need to participate, you need to crush it. You need a really good entry for us to shortlist you and invite you to the hackathon. So I recommend that if you think you've got what it takes, go to hashgraphonline.com/hackathon and register today. It's a huge opportunity. And if nothing else, it's a good way to learn about Hedera and the ecosystem that we're building out. Again, these kinds of the trajectory of Hedera X AI isn't just like a meme. It can be a viable business model. If you look at where AI is heading in the Web2 ecosystem, there is a lot of money involved in this niche and this vertical. So I recommend taking a look at it and seeing if there's something that you can build here that'll be viable as a product.
Amazing.
Also, sorry, last thing. After this call at around 11 Eastern, we're kicking off a Hackathon Roundtable space where there would be $200 in prizes that you can win by giving a 30-second pitch. And this is good practice for the demo day that's happening in May.
That's incredible, Michael. And this, I want to touch on two quick questions before I go into closing thoughts, just to keep us here on time. But Deborn asks, how do we contact resources for the hackathon? This person wants to participate. And I think this relates to Michael's answer and point about those office hours or roundtable. So if you register, we're doing those office hours. Hashgraph Online folks are supporting those office hours on a weekly basis, where you'll have access to mentors, ecosystem experts, and builders. And of course, on our Discord server, you can also join that to get in touch with all the mentors supporting this hackathon. The other question that I saw very quickly come in was, can we get the presentation deck? Absolutely. This is being recorded, and then we'll share the slides as a follow-up as well. All right, guys. So keeping an eye on time, I want to pass it to Ashe for maybe some closing thoughts. Ashe, tell us about what excites you about this agents trend that we're seeing, and where do you see this going in the short term and long term future?
Yeah, I mean, short term, I was listening to one of the founders of Anthropic, and he was saying how intelligence and answering questions is being commoditized, right? It's being commoditized. But what makes him really excited is that now, since intelligence is effectively free, it's what actions can be taken based off of that intelligence. So if I ask, an LLM or some bot, some agent for an answer to a question, then a lot of the times I want it to go do some research for me. Like, I'm looking to buy a new car right now, right? And I'm like, okay, what about the Tesla Model Y versus the Honda CR-V and this and that? And it's starting to ask me at the very end, would you like me to go find some of these cars for you in your local area and come back with prices? Well, this type of agentic relationship between human and AI is what really gets me excited. I used to fancy myself as one of the world's greatest Googlers, right? I paid attention to Google from a very early age and learned how to speak Google's language so I could get great results. I haven't used a Google search in weeks now, right? And so the shift is real. And now the execution of actions is what we're going to continue to see over the next 6, 12, 18 months. And that's where agents come in. And that's what's got me really excited. These agents right now they have a bit of a discoverability problem, right? And this is what Open Convey and built on Hedera solves. And that's what's got me really excited.
Incredible. Very well said, Ashe. All right, Michael, over to you in this last minute. Let us know your closing thoughts and what excites you. Where do you see this going forward, short term and long term?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you all for joining us today. I think this was a great call. If you've gotten anything from this call, just remember these two words, Hedera X AI, and the demo day on May 20th, and register for the hackathon at hedera.com/hackathon. Do not wait to the last minute. We're so stoked to see what you come up with. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Much appreciated, and enjoy the rest of your day. Same with you, community. Thank you all for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.